Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Rent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, alongside, as always, hello, Scott.
Whew. Hi, Sean.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Whew. Long week. How are you? How are you?
Hey, if I was any better, I'd be two people, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right on. I'm it's dark and we're recording and I'm not seeing your face for the first time all week. So yeah, it's pretty different.
Yeah, a little different from what we were doing all week with the broom stacking over on the Facebook page. The Scotties was fun. I enjoyed doing that. 9 days in a row. 9 days? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot. Yeah. You of course abandoned the people in the middle of the week.
Yeah, Yeah. I'm okay with that.
All right. So let's get right into it. We just watched the final. We were recording this right after the final. Just saw the Vic essay. I did make Scott wait for about 5 minutes so we could see the Vic essay, which is essential viewing for any of these things. So we have, Scott, back-to-back champions, back-to-back, belly-to-belly. Kerri Einarson and her team winning for the second straight year. And for the second straight year, they don't have a world championship to go to, at least in the short term, which is certainly unfortunate for them. But congratulations to Kerri Einarson and the team. Scott, what did you make of that final? It turns out to be a 9-7 final. Kerri Einarson doesn't have to throw her last in the 10th end. What was your take on this final?
It wasn't particularly close, I don't think, despite what the final score might tell you. Einarson was in control the whole game. Homan was chasing the whole game. She never seemed perfectly sure of herself when putting the broom down, when taking the weight. Yeah. When Rachel Homan's playing at her best, she's decisive, broom down, this is what we're doing. And I heard a lot of, what do you think of this? You want to do this? What do you like? Do you like this ice?
There's a lot of I don't know. Yeah.
A lot of I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, which is too bad. So what it showed me was that Einarson's team, picked up on the ice a little bit earlier, was able to, take the game to Rachel Homan. They were always on the offense. They were never defensive, except for maybe the ninth end where they ended up giving the steal a 2, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. Yeah. But yeah, they just sort of took control of that game and weren't going to let go of it.
Yeah, no question. And it was really from the start. So Rachel Homan had the hammer in the first end, and there's a steal of 1 in the first. Homan gets a 2 in the second end. And then even in the third end, Kerri Einarson and the team were in full control of that end. They had I don't want to say an easy 2 setup, but a relatively straightforward 2 setup. And on Kerri Einarson's final throw, it was just too heavy, hung out, and she rolled out and only got the 1. But even in that case, you're thinking, well, okay, Rachel Homan dodged a bullet there, gets forced back, and then a 3 in the fifth end, and she's down 3 heading to the break. And I realized that last year's game, this is not quite a carbon copy of last year, but very similar to last year, where Rachel Homan's chasing the whole time, gets a break late in the game to make it competitive, give herself a chance late in the game, certainly, but Kerri Einarson is able to withstand what you might say is a big mistake late in the game, or at least a missed shot late in the game. We can talk about whether or not it's a mistake or not, but she's in such control of the game that she can withstand that and then still come back and win the game. And that's exactly what happened last year.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I was thinking the same thing, Sean, that, when Homan steals that 2, I'm thinking, oh, is this just like last year's game?
Right.
So yeah, and Einarson gets that big 3 in the fifth end. It didn't really come out of nowhere, but it was like Homan trying to make the perfect roll, trying to put the rock in the perfect spot, and just couldn't do it. And that's something we didn't really see from that team all week. So I'll ask you a question then, Sean. Do you think that Team Einarson playing that semifinal this afternoon, do you think that gave them an advantage when it came to reading the ice, especially for what it would be like to play on a single sheet?
Potentially, but I don't really know. So online on Twitter, it was pointed out to us that Rachel Homan did have a single sheet game earlier in the week against, or excuse me, Kerri Einarson had a single sheet game
She
earlier
did,
in the
yes.
week against the Northwest Territories. So yeah, maybe that experience of having a couple single sheet games did help it today. I don't know. And I pointed out this morning too that the tiebreaker game was on an N sheet. I don't know if it
Yeah.
was A or D, but it was on an end sheet. And I suggested on Twitter that perhaps it was on an end sheet for the advertising. You have no fans. And one of the reasons they put it in the middle usually is for the fans, that fans on all sides can see somewhat equally. And then for television purposes, you have the empty sheets. So you can do whatever you want. But I figured in this scenario, maybe they just put it on the end because you have the big video board and the advertisers want their ads to be more prominent in the broadcast. And a couple of people said on Twitter, well, no, it's because they don't want the same team to play on the same sheet back to back because that gives a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look back, last year this was the case where the winner of the semifinal got to play on the same sheet in the final. That's what happened today with Kerri Einarson. She got to play on that sheet.
I don't think it did. I don't think it did. I think they played on B this afternoon and C tonight.
Well, that's not what Vic said.
Oh, no?
No, Vic said they were on the same.
Okay.
So that could be wrong, but I'm just that is what Vic said.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the Curling Canada scoreboard, both were on C.
Okay.
So I don't fully understand why the tiebreaker was on an end sheet and the other ones weren't, other than if you didn't think you had enough time to do a full scrape, get the ice ready in between games where it's a shorter turnaround time between the tiebreaker and the semifinals. The only thing I could potentially think of. But I do wonder if it does provide a competitive advantage, because it's not like you're doing a burn between games. So maybe it does. And last year, Brad Gushu won, having come out of the semifinal. Maybe there is an advantage there.
And in a format like we're seeing this year, right, where the first place team goes right to the final, do not pass go, do not collect $200. They don't get a chance to play in that sort of playoff atmosphere.
Right.
So yeah, you have Einarson, 2 hours before, basically getting, going to work, doing homework on the sheet that they're going to play on. And they were the team that picked up the differences in the sheet a lot faster today.
Yeah, and this is something I think that would be fun to track just as we move forward. Is there a competitive advantage to playing in the semifinal if it's going to be on the same sheet where the other team is idle all day?
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, well, it seemed to me anecdotally tonight it was an advantage for Kerri Einarson.
Yeah, they definitely had a better sense or a better control of the ice. They knew what was going on. They were much more control throughout that game. No question about it.
Yeah.
So Scott, let's talk about the ninth end. You mentioned it. Rachel Homan gets a steal of 2 in that end. To me, this is the most interesting end of the night. Rachel Homan is playing for the steal. She's down 2 at the time, down 7-5. Kerri Einarson has the hammer. We have a center guard up. Rachel Homan has won basically at the 12 o'clock position under cover, frozen to a yellow one. Then there's a center guard. Kerri Einarson on her first plays a shot, and she ends up right beside that stone at 12 o'clock in the top 4. Rachel Homan hits it to be right beside it, and this is where the decision comes from. And Scott, what did you think the options were for Kerri Einarson, and what did you ultimately think of the decision she made?
So she had 3 options to my mind. Option 1, draw full forefoot. I think there was a high corner guard, maybe not. So that's there, right? Draw behind the guard. The second option, and I think what the best option is Rachel Homan's, the shot that she threw with her last was accessible to be hit. Hit that one, roll out, concede a steal of 1. Mm-hmm. You go to the 10th, up 1 with hammer. The odds of winning that I think are in the 60, 70%. No, it's more than that. It's like a 90%
Yeah.
odds of winning the game in that scenario.
Mhm.
The option that she chose was to try and get real cute with that center guard and run her own rock back into the Homan shot stone, which I don't even think would have made her shot. So
It would have
she
been
was,
tough to be shot out of
I
that.
mean, maybe it would have, right? So like
Yeah.
the risk reward on that, I didn't think was worth it.
Right.
Like I say, I think, conceding the steal of one is the best shot. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised that they played it that way, and yeah, I think the steal of one is your best play. Coming home with the hammer up one is great, and the degree of difficulty on the shot to give up that one is so low that she's going to make it 99 times out of 100, and the 100th time is a pick, and that so it made me think that. Well, I don't even know what I was thinking because you could play the draw to score potentially, but again, you're doing that against two and against the tie. And Kerri at one point said, "Do you just want to give him one?" And the front end didn't seem too into it. Val didn't seem too into it, and she sort of went with it. But statistically, I really do think that is the play. Now, to be fair, you are not just playing against the statistics and the numbers because being up one with the hammer against almost any other team in this field is different than being up one with the hammer against Rachel Homan. So if you're in this mindset of, hey, if we make this shot, the game is over. And I kind of like that mentality of if we make this shot, score a point, potentially two, if you get the absolute right break. I don't think it was ever there for two, but you win the game. And I always like the idea of let's just win the game. But on this one, I just think the degree of difficulty was so high and you were in such control of all the ends except for the ninth end that just play it and be up one, take the numbers. There's a very low chance that you'd ever give up a steal at two. The odds of two steals back to back to lose the game is so low that I just think from a numbers standpoint, the hit, give up the one was the play.
So, Sean, being up 3 points without the hammer, with one end to go, is 96.9% win probability.
Mm-hmm.
Being up one with hammer is 86.3. So it's about a 10% difference. And then, so what you got to take into account is, was that shot makeable? Is
that worth the 10%?
Worth it, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, no. Dean texted us actually, and he was also surprised at the call. So I'm curious what the listeners think. What did they think when she made that call? Because if I'm Rachel Homan and I'm standing there, I'm ecstatic that that's the shot she's playing.
Right.
That's what I want her to play.
For sure. It gives you a chance to tie the game.
Exactly. And you always want to think, what does my opponent want me to do? And then maybe don't do that.
Sure.
Now, I mean, she won.
Yeah.
But like, she didn't have to make it that close.
No question that she didn't. And yeah. So is the 10% worth it? And again, those numbers are all games all the time, right? Where you look at that.
Yeah.
They're not playing against arguably one of the best teams in the world, right? So, you take that with a grain of salt, but you also do have to assess what the situation is in that game. And the team that you are playing has struggled with the ice all night. And they have struggled to get rocks in the right position. So you take that into consideration. And so that's why I would have leaned to that. Of course, it did work out for them. And again, she missed it, and being tied coming home with the hammer isn't a terrible situation either.
No, that's a 72% win probability. And this is over the last 3 seasons for only women's events.
Right.
Per curling zone. So she lost 14% probability of winning, but was still heavily favored to win.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. So they made the determination that it was worth the risk. And I mean, okay, I mean, that's fine. But yeah, it's one of those things where the angles didn't look great. I would have liked it if she had made it, like she had made contact, because I would have been curious just to see what had happened with those
Mhm.
angles. Would the stone that was frozen? It depends on where you hit it, but it almost looked like it would have geared back up and maybe gone out of the house around the like 2 o'clock position.
Yeah.
And maybe, hey, if you get a blank there, that's great too.
Yeah.
Not sure if a blank was
absolutely.
ever there, but
I don't think it was ever there, but yeah, like even just giving up one was I think the optimal play once you were in that position.
yeah. So big win. They come back 10th end. Rachel Homan needed a break. Unfortunately for Team Ontario, Joanne Courtney had a stone hog, one of her guards, and even
Mm.
in the 5 rock rule, you get one hogged, and that is kind of it.
Yeah, yeah. Wonder. I wonder what Lisa Weagle was thinking when that happened. Eh?
Yeah, there's some tweets about that, and that's just an unfortunate break for Joanne Courtney. Again, the whole team struggled all night with the weight, so it's just too bad that happened in that spot. Rachel Homan and the team do get a bit of a break. Kerri Einarson's first one, she's trying to roll. Homan comes deep on her first, a draw that was, I think it was supposed to be a freeze, comes a little deep into the back 4 foot around the 7 o'clock position, and Einarson noses it. So Homan
Mhm.
does have a freeze to force a draw against the tie, or excuse me, against the loss in that spot. And unfortunately for Rachel Homan, she comes heavy, misses everything, goes deep, ends up being 2 for Einarson because she had one in the 8 foot as well. A little anticlimactic at the end there for the team with the hammer in a tie game not to have to throw their last one. And I got to say, Scott, when Rachel Homan went to throw it, I just expected it to be made. And,
Oh yeah,
that's one of those things you just don't expect from Rachel Homan to miss a shot like that in a big moment.
oh for sure no. And she had just thrown the exact same shot basically,
Yeah.
and so she said it to her sweepers like, it's 2 rocks higher,
Yep.
so just a little less. And you know whether it was more weight or she just popped it a bit more and it stayed out in the good stuff, right? Because her first one, they were yelling like, oh, it's through.
Mhm.
And then as it crossed that slide path, really, really died and stopped back 8.
Mhm. And that was that. Val was able to sweep through, and I don't know. I have not seen the end of every Canadian women's championship that has ever been played, but that had to be I don't want to say most awkward celebration of all time, but it just felt weird for
Yeah.
the game to be over and it to be silent.
Yeah. There's
Like,
nobody cheering, right?
yeah, today is the first day. I hadn't really noticed it all week because you have other games going on. There is that ambient noise.
Yeah.
Today I noticed it all day, but particularly late in the game where there was no crowd. And right at the end there, it just it I don't want to say it fell flat as a moment, because of course it's exciting. It's a national championship, back-to-back wins for a team, but it felt off not to have the crowd there.
For sure. For sure. And you're right. They were sort of like screaming, but trying to not scream too loudly because
Right.
like it was kind of weird.
Yep.
And Rachel Homan was like kind of stunned that she'd missed the shot.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really weird, really, really awkward. I think
Yeah.
awkward's the right word, Sean.
Yeah. And throwing no handshakes either, because normally
Yeah.
you might have a little celebration, then shake hands, or shake hands and then celebrate. In this one, you just sort of look over at them and wave and then so the no handshakes didn't help with that either. So, I do wonder, I'm sure they'll say, and I'm sure it'll be genuine when they say it, that it was super exciting. It was great. And yeah, they would have preferred if all their family could be there, but hey, they had them on the board and it was great. And you know what, of all the national championship wins, I'll remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Curling Canada has done a great job in putting together this bubble. and it seems like it's working so
Yeah.
far, knock on wood. But, one thing they could have done is maybe cut that audio from Brad Gushu's shot in St. John's and just, had it on hand just for the celebration.
Or turned on some music even.
Yeah. Yeah. They turn on music when the crowd's there, right? And I hate
Yeah.
it. I hate when they turn music on during the timeouts.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I want to hear what they have to say.
Right. But I'm thinking just in that moment, end of the game, turn some music on. Or, I mean, even I'm sure Jeff Walker and Laura Walker probably wouldn't have wanted to walk over and watch the game. But if any of the men are there for the Briar already, if they've gone through the proper protocols in quarantine, let them in. At least you have some sort of noise, something. I know most of the other teams had left by now, so you couldn't have the other players there, but just have someone there who's in a position to make some noise.
Or let the audio from the Zoom call
just let it ride. Yeah.
Let's let the audio go. And anyway, Sean, I wanted to ask you, is Rachel Homan the Buffalo Bills?
No, she's won 3.
So, but she hasn't won 3 with the team she has now.
No, that is an accurate statement. But she's also only lost 1 with the team she has now.
Right.
So
I mean, there's a resiliency to getting there. I'm asking because I watched the Four Falls of Buffalo a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And like those Buffalo teams were so good. And because they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row, people say, oh, the Bulls, they weren't that good. Like, to get there is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
As you know from, the Buffalo Bills never making the Super Bowl since then. So, it's really hard for Team Homan to get to a final. They've done it the last 4 that they've been to.
Correct. 6 out of the last 7 times Rachel Homan has been to a Scotties, she has made the final.
Yes, and she's never not medaled at the Scotties.
Correct.
Except the first time.
No, 11. Yeah, in 11, she lost the bronze medal game.
Yeah.
She's never missed the playoffs.
So, like, pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
But do you think there's anything in her head about
No.
I can't win?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
I don't. I think the way she lost in 19, certainly it was uncharacteristic for her, no question. That was a game that I think you and I still feel this way, and we said it at the time, was that is a game that she lost more so than Chelsea Carey won.
Agreed.
That Rachel Homan had some misses on some pretty straightforward shots. And I mean, full credit to Chelsea Carey for winning the game and putting Stones in certain positions. But they're shots that you'd expect Rachel Homan to make. And then last year and this year, they just, you just struggle with the ice. You don't have it. And even that, Scott, both those games, they didn't have their A game. And last year they lost in an extra, and this year it was tied coming home. So if you can do that and not play your best, that's pretty impressive. And again, I think the analogy falls short when you acknowledge that she's won 3. She's been to the Olympics. I don't, and yes, she has not won one since the Olympics. And if somebody wants to craft a narrative that the Olympics and the struggles that they had at the Olympic Games in 2018 have somehow carried over into this quadrennial, I really don't think that holds water, because she's won elsewhere. She's won a Canada Cup. She's won slams. She just hasn't won 3 Scotties finals in a row, but she's gotten there. And you know who hasn't gotten there? Pretty much everybody else. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to fall into any sort of narrative of Rachel Homan has lost it or anything like that. If you want to look at a Buffalo Bills analogy, Brendan Botcher certainly fits it better. And they had a brilliant tweet tonight when, not to sort of sidetrack too much, but the odds for the men's, for the Briars came out. And I think they were plus 400 to win. And I assume it was Darren Molding tweeted back from the Team Botcher account, what are our odds to finish second? which is just brilliant. But no, I really think that if you're looking at the top teams in Canada on the women's side, I think you might be able to make a case that Jennifer Jones and her team are not as big of a threat as they used to be. Still one of the top teams in the country, no question. And in the past, in the last quadrennial, it was Jones Homan, and this quadrennial, it's Homan Einarson. And everyone else is sort of playing for third place at this point. So I'm still very impressed with this team. I don't think that anything is in her head at all. I think she's had far too much success for something like that to happen. And I don't anticipate a situation where she finishes her career as a 3-time Scotties champion.
Okay, so she's not Chuck Knobloch with the yips.
No.
I agree. She's not. I just wanted to say Chuck Knobloch. All right. So
she lost three. She lost 3 games over 10 days. I think it's fine.
Yeah, she can make the throw from second to first, is what you're saying.
All right. And if you look, and sorry, if you look to like some of the shots that she did make, I mean, she drew the pin multiple times to save ends.
Right? Yes, the draw against 5 tonight.
Yeah, like the struggles and the positioning was earlier in the end. And we talked on the broom stacking about how we pinpointed Emma Miskew, but really the whole front end of the team has to support her in some way. I mean, we joke that, yes, it's a skips games. The skip that's why the teams are named after the skips, because they're the ones, and their shots are the ones that truly ultimately matter. But to score multiple points, with rare exceptions, you need the other players to put things in the right position. And tonight, if you look at the front 3 players on both teams, I don't think it's any discredit to Team Homan to say that Kerri Einarson and Team Canada outplayed them on the front 3 positions.
Yeah, absolutely. Emma did shoot 78 to Val's 75, but as they mentioned on the broadcast, Val really picked it up in the second half of the game. Yeah. So struggled a bit early, and then from that 5th end on was really, really on fire.
Absolutely.
So that's totally fair, because we did ask, we would look for that matchup, and so it was pretty even. But then if you go back to the seconds and the leads, Team Canada held a strong advantage there.
Yeah, and if you look just through the week, I don't think Kerri Einarson threw a minus herself, nor did Rachel Homan. So from the draws I'm seeing. So very impressive for both skips all week.
Rachel Homan on draw 21 did, and tonight.
Okay.
Draw 21, that was against Jennifer Jones.
Oh, yeah. They got...
When they got spammed.
They got beat up pretty good there. Yeah.
It was 9-1, yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough day, or a tough draw for them. Yeah, overall, if you're looking at it, Kerri Einarson, plus 11 on the week. That's
insane.
That's insane. They played 15 games, and she was plus 11.
I think only 14.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, 4. Oh, that makes it even better. 14 games plus 11. That's bonkos.
Yeah, and the ones, pretty crazy.
Yeah. So congratulations to them. As I mentioned off the top, it is unfortunate that at the moment they don't have a world championship to go to. We would expect there to be something, whatever the World Curling Federation decides to call whatever they're going to do, whether they call it a world championship or whether they just call it an Olympic qualifier. Kerri Einarson is the team that is going to go to this, unless for whatever reason something comes up that they can't. But the only things I can think of are things that would be bad. And I certainly don't want to put that out into the world. Right. So I certainly hope that it works out, that they can go and represent it. I was very touched, if you will, about how open Val Sweeting has been this week, about the struggles she had over the summer, the disappointment that she felt of not being able to play in the World Championship last year, in part because the team was there, everyone was there ready to go, and they pulled the plug. So hopefully for them, they can do it. And certainly they'll be a worthy representative for Canada whenever it is that they get to go out there and play. And I think the only question now, Scott, is will they play in Scotties 2022 or will they be the Olympic team?
Yeah, it's not crazy to think of, right? 2-time defending national champion going into that Olympic trials qualifier will probably be the favorite.
I think so.
I mean, this Homan team will be there, but we talked about Jennifer Jones owned Kerri Einarson for so long, and then Einarson got over the hump, won Manitoba, and now has won 2 Scotties. Homan, and she's beaten Homan for both of them.
Yeah. Pretty
so good. Yeah, I would say those 3 teams are probably the 3 teams to look for.
Yep.
Maybe whoever Chelsea Carey ends up with, whether that's Team Fleury or another team, who knows? But I think that's sort of the field.
Yeah,
the picks to win. I mean, it would be nice to see maybe Krista McCarville's team come.
They have to come through the pre-trials. They didn't get an event or an invite to the pre-trials.
No, that's right. And last time they came through the pre-trials as well.
Yeah, Krista McCarville has never gotten a direct entry into the trials. She's played in it twice.
Yeah.
And never gotten the direct entry. Had to come through the pre-trials both times. And the time she wasn't there in 2013, she had been at the pre-trials and wasn't able to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So that's always been her route, just the schedule that they play. So we'll see what happens as we move forward. But I'll say, is just reference to the trials, all those teams who are playing in the pre-trials are pretty happy with the outcome this week.
I think so. Yeah. That's an extra spot opened up for that pre-trials event, as you call it.
Yeah, because that's what it's going to be called.
Cool.
Not me calling it that. That's
so Sean,
what it's going to be.
What's what it's going to be. There you go. So overall, as we wrap it up here, what do you think is the story of this week?
I think it is Kerri Einarson and her team coming back after a very challenging year. Obviously, they are a team that is separated geographically, with Val in Alberta, the rest in Manitoba, coming together, not having seen each other, not really having a chance to play after that. And again, knowing what we know, given how open they were about the struggles they had, the disappointment they had last year, being able to come back and really just dominate this event wire to wire. The loss to Rachel Homan on Thursday afternoon, that put the Team Ontario into that pole position, and they were able to get first place. But there was never a feeling, Scott, that, for me at least, the Team Canada was vulnerable at any point. Even when they lost that game to Rachel Homan, they were never really a threat to miss the playoffs. And in the playoff games, the 2 they played today, they're just in control the whole time. So to me, that is the main story. Not just because they won, but because of the circumstances surrounding them over the past year. So for me, it's Kerri Einarson and the team.
Yeah, I think that's probably the number one story. If you're a sports columnist, right, you're probably writing about this team and the resiliency coming back from the disappointment of not going to the Worlds last year. I'd say the secondary story, I mean, you could write something about Team Homan. But it might be the young teams that sort of came up here with Team Quebec, Beth Peterson, even Mackenzie Zacharias. This sort of changing of the guard at the Scotties that I think we've seen the first sort of start of it this week, and whether Jennifer Jones, whether it's her last quadrennial and she steps back, there's a lot of talent in Manitoba that's waiting to come through and get that spot. So I think that's sort of another theme for the week. Yeah,
and it'll certainly be interesting to see how it all plays out with those younger teams. Obviously, the Manitoba situation, it's tough. Like, there's so many good teams in Manitoba to come out. There is going to be some changing around of teams, probably a little bit this summer, but certainly next summer. It's going to be wide open in terms of who plays with who as we start a new quad. So to see who steps away from the game, because certainly there will be some folks who do, who continues, who wants to break out, make their own team potentially. people who used to be skips who maybe want to go back to skipping, or people who are currently skips who don't want to skip anymore, because we've seen that has been a successful model as well. So just seeing how that comes all together. And then, the younger teams, can they maintain the success and put things together? We saw Team Quebec, they went 0-4 in the championship pool. Hopefully that doesn't create any sort of disappointment in the week that they had, because it was obviously a great week. But we hope that they can get out, maybe play a little bit on tour next year. They might be a pre-trials team too to look out for. They're not going to be at the pre-trials, but they could be a pre-trials team that comes through. And if they are there in Saskatoon next year, assuming that the event still takes place in Saskatoon, they would be a fan favorite going into that. So it's just a team to look out for, potentially, see if they can sustain that success. And then, do the Manitoba young teams look elsewhere potentially to
like
out of a different province?
I mean, Carly Burgess, of course, from Nova Scotia, so has birthright there. She lives in Manitoba now, but maybe she puts together some teams to play out or some players to play out in Nova Scotia. Who knows? And as Jonathan mentioned yesterday on our little pod stack, that this Quebec team could be the next kind of Brad Gushu sort of auto bid team.
Yeah.
If they want to stay with it. And, Quebec does have some good teams. But if they end up being the strongest and can keep coming back and keep building that winning pedigree, it took Brad Gushu a long time to win a Brier.
Sure did.
But he got a lot of experience by going to Briers.
Yep.
So, something to look out for there. And the logjam in Manitoba will be, as you say, interesting to see how it shakes out once the quad is finished.
Yeah. So a lot to keep track of there for the future as we look forward. A couple other things just to come out of this, Scott. I believe during our preview episode, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I said strongly that Pool A was much stronger than Pool B. I believe I said something along the lines of Pool A would try to steal Pool B's lunch money.
I thought you said that about Pool B.
Really?
I mean, I don't remember.
Okay, well, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll just say Pool A in the championship pool, 12-4 was the record against Pool B. So over those 16 games, those 2 days, Pool A certainly dominated the play once we got to the crossover. So not surprising that the 3 playoff teams come out of Pool A in that scenario. We've seen that now a couple times where one pool dominates the championship round and gets all the playoff teams. So just a bit of an interesting tidbit there and something to keep track of as we move ahead to the Brier. Just a bit of housekeeping too. In 2017, which is the most recent time we've had this format, I guess, of 3 teams and one team not playing into the final, and then
at the trials, right?
At the trials, and the team has a full day off at the trials. Round robin ends Friday, semifinals on Saturday, so a full day off. The teams that had the bye to the final went 1-1. So Cooey finished first on the men's side and won. Chelsea Carey finished first on the women's side and lost. So not that that's enough of a sample size, but just thought I'd point that out.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So that'll do it for the 2021 Scotties Tournament of Hearts. What a ride, Scott.
Oh, great ride. It's fun to have curling back. I'm pretty tired. It was a long week. I wasn't in game shape yet.
Sure.
But I'm sure by next week for the Brier, I'll be in the better rhythm. I got to say, working from home is nice because I can have the curling on in the background.
Yeah.
I obviously don't watch it all day, but it is nice to have on and you can take a look when you hear a good shot or at least are aware of the scores and all that. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is nice background and something different too, just to break up the days.
Yeah. It's been a lot of monotony for a lot of people for a long time. So nice to have some curling in our houses and nice to have some Vic on our TV.
Yeah, gotta love it. Vic. And the Vic essay was exactly what you thought it'd be. I gotta say. The signs. He talked about the signs of COVID around the arena, and all the signs were different this year, except for on the ice or something like that.
Well,
I love the Vic essays.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, and it was worth delaying this podcast for 5 minutes to get the Vic essay.
Absolutely.
So also just the last bit of housekeeping. Scott, our picks.
Our picks.
From the start of the week, you had wild card 1, Chelsea Kerri, winning this event. You also had Manitoba and Canada into the playoffs. So in our old scoring system, you get 1 point for that. I had Manitoba winning. I also had Canada and Ontario into the playoffs. So I would get 2 points in the old system. Tiebreakers don't count, even though I gave myself half a point earlier today.
Yeah, you don't get a half a point.
I do not, but I'm doubling up on you right now.
Well, good for you. I'll make it up in the Briar.
All right, and on Twitter I'll post what my record was picking the games. I picked all the games in the office pools and did okay-ish in the round robin, and slightly less okay-ish. I think I went 10-6 in the championship pool. I got tonight's game right, so I'll post what the final record was there. And I didn't do great in the fantasy curling either. I was in the low, like high hundreds, low hundreds. It was in like 120th.
Okay.
So
I didn't get a chance to register before the Scotties, but I'll be in for the Briar, so we'll go head to head.
Yeah, see where we land.
Right on.
All right, so that'll do it for our Scotties recap. I will encourage everybody to check out Two Girls in a Game this week whenever they post. Lori Eddy, who is the skip of Nunavut, will have some behind-the-scenes stories of what happened in the bubble and talk about all the things going on. So do check that out. And of course, we have been broom stacking all week on Facebook after the games, after the afternoon games. And on Friday night into Saturday morning, posted some of our favorite moments through the first 7 days of the event to give you a sense of what we've been talking about, some of the themes that emerged over the course of the week over there. And if you want, you can check out all of the broom stacking videos. They're available on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Game of Stones podcast. So a lot of fun there. We had some guests come on. We'll do it again for the Briar, which should be a lot of fun. Kicks off, Scott, in, I don't know what, like 120 hours or something.
Oh boy, that's a lot to think of. Yeah, like give or take.
Yeah, around that. So the Briar is coming up fast and furious. We'll be back early this week with our full Briar preview. We will talk about all 18 teams that are heading to Calgary to join the bubble. The great reunion. Scott, do you think on Twitter or some other form of social media, Team Gushu will do a slow motion montage of Jeff Walker running towards Brad Gushu as they see each other for the first time since they won the Briar last year in Kingston?
Ooh, like a little Chariots of Fire style, like music where they run towards each other is slow motion. Ooh.
Yeah.
I'll put the odds at 100 to 1, but I like putting some money on that.
Okay, yeah. A nice emotional reunion to those guys. It's hard to believe that those guys who spend so much time together haven't seen each other since the Briar, since Kingston. So kind of crazy times.
Pretty crazy. I agree.
Yeah. And Scott, as we come up on it too, I'll just say that February 28th, last year there was a February 29th. I believe that was the last time I was in a hotel. We come up on the anniversary of that in Kingston.
That's right. During the Briar. Briar. Maybe you had coronavirus, Sean.
I did not have the coronavirus. I had something.
Mm-hmm.
I was not feeling the greatest at the Briar, but the fact that I was around so many people and nobody else got sick made me think it wasn't this.
Yes, probably not.
Yes.
But we're glad that you're feeling better.
It would have been awful to have Briar canceled. This guy responsible. It's just my face on the national.
I can just imagine the picture that they'd use. Maybe your like Twitter avatar or something.
I'm okay with that. I have hair in that picture. It's fine.
Oh, that's right. You changed it from your Saskatchewan cape.
Yes, I did. I got career advice to change it from the Saskatchewan Cape.
Very good. All right.
Yeah.
It's late. Let's get out of here.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Like I said, we'll be back early this week with our Briar preview. So do check that out. And of course, the best of our broom stacking is available. And please do subscribe to the show so you don't miss any of it. Wherever you get your podcast, do the likes, ratings, do comments, helps us beat the algorithm, helps other people find us. And you can follow along with all the things going on with us on Twitter and Instagram at Game of Stones Pod. You can also follow the Facebook page, as I mentioned, for all the broom stacking updates. And head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. You can find all the past episodes there, plus our explanation, our FAQ of the Olympic qualifying for Canada, as well as the merch. We have the t-shirts that are available. We are also working on changing it up a little bit, maybe offering some new things, as we will continue to have all the proceeds for things go to Food Banks Canada, but maybe change it up in part because it's like, I want to order some different things. So we might change up some of the merch offerings over there. We've looked and started the process of looking into that. We'll provide updates as we go forward. And of course, do let us know what you want to hear on the show, Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com. Always happy to hear what you have to say. So that'll do it for us. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back with you in a day or two. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice. Don't dump that intern.
Make the final.